Tyler, sir, thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited, honestly. It was weird because my brother told me that he's gonna go on a date with Tyler. He didn't specify which Tyler. I'm like, dude, I wonder if it's Tyler from our neighborhood. And it was the Tyler from our neighborhood, man. So haven't seen each other for like 6-7 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
High school,
dude. That neighborhood off Foothills Boulevard, which was pretty cool. Now I've learned that you were in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about the Air Force today.
Absolutely.
Maybe some general things, and then things more specific to what you did in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't, like I told you, I honestly don't know a lot about the Air Force, so I don't even know where to start. Yeah. But we can start from the beginning, kind of what you did, boot camp, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, so before that, it was kind of my dad was military.
Okay.
He was Air Force for 6 years.
Oh, nice.
My grandpa was military. My uncles, pretty much basically every male in my family's been military. So basically just I know that that's something I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And, you get out of high school and I went straight to Sierra College, like pretty much everyone else that went to Oakmont. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think the first day I had a world history class, and I'd just taken a world history class. And then there was the one I did in middle school. Mm-hmm. And then I went into a political science class, and this was fall of 2012. Mm-hmm. And long story short on that front is just that teacher in the political science course wore an Obama t-shirt.
Oh, man.
When he was elected.
Yeah.
And was extremely biased towards the left, I guess. Okay. So I knew about 2 weeks in that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I actually...
a teacher or...
no, just go to school.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I'm not ready for this. I don't know why I'm doing this. I was doing general education because I was hoping I'd figure it out along the way. Mm-hmm.
So you're one of those people that wishes they had a podcast like this.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say to help you out is... I'm a college dropout and I'm proud.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, obviously I'm going to talk about the beginnings of the Air Force, but I'm back in college now.
Okay.
But now I know what I'm doing.
Okay, awesome.
Well, I mean, more so, right?
Okay, yeah.
But so I basically went, I talked to the recruiter, and it's funny, the first recruiter I talked to was an Army recruiter. Mm-hmm. And you learn some stuff about different jobs. You learn some cool things about, okay, in this branch, you can basically get a guaranteed pick of jobs. Like, you're going to be this once you get to basic training and go into the training pipeline for that job.
In the Army? In the Army.
Okay. And in the Air Force, as I talked to the recruiter, this would have been basically this fall of 2012. And I wanted to be, I was a photographer, just for fun, but I thought, call it like just combat camera, so just photojournalism. I thought that might be an option. Now, obviously, that's a pretty cool career field, so a lot of people are trying to get that, so that wasn't going to work out. Okay. But I went into the Air Force not really knowing what job I'd end up getting. Okay. So you talk to the recruiter, and they go, basically, we're looking for these types of career fields, and usually what they're needing is maintenance, so mechanics for all the jets. They need cops, and that's really about it.
Like that's what they have. Cops?
Well, so we call them gate guards. Okay. So basically making sure the right people are getting onto the Air Force base, and then things like that, airfield cops. So making sure that the planes themselves are guarded properly. So patrols, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really know a lot about that, but military police.
Right.
So that wasn't what I wanted to do. And maintenance was kind of one of those things that my dad did it. He's a crew chief on a Huey, which is the Vietnam era helicopter. And, it's definitely a tough job. They do long shifts. They're responsible for making sure, an aircraft is airworthy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he told me a story about someone leaving a wrench in a helicopter.
Oh, man. How did that go?
It worked out fine because the wrench didn't become loose and get in the gearbox or drivetrain or whatever. But there's a lot going on in that career field, and it was I was 18-year-old kid. I was just kind of like, I don't really know what I wanted to do.
Right.
I got a guaranteed, not a guaranteed job, but basically the way the Air Force does it versus the Army is
Mm-hmm.
they go, we will give you a job in this general area. So IT. So that's what I was going to go do.
IT.
IT.
Okay.
So they had jobs ranging from like, just basic IT to like communications on and dealing with aircraft. And
Mm-hmm.
I later found out the one I was going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
was handing out radios to aircrew. And
Okay. How did you feel about that?
you know, I love my crew comm friends, but that wasn't really,
Yeah.
it's not something I think I would have enjoyed compared to the
Right.
job I ended up getting.
Okay.
And I had that job. I was ready to go. And
Yeah.
then in 2013, you remember the government shutdown?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it affected the military too.
Oh wow,
So,
really?
yeah, the Air Force basically, I don't know the percentage offhand. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was something like 20% of the Air Force was basically given the boot.
Wow.
So it's basically like, hey, you can get out right now and, have a good one. And
Yeah.
so with that, all the new recruits like myself that were going to be going into the pipeline
Mm-hmm.
were, we were almost all, they call it DEP. So this program I was in waiting to leave for the military was the delayed enlistment program.
Okay.
So just delaying the actual time you would go into the Air Force. And
Okay.
they were going to get rid of everyone in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been there the longest. At
Mm-hmm.
this point now, we're talking fall 2013. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it was like October.
Okay.
So I've been waiting for a year at this
On the
point.
DEP program.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in the meantime while you were waiting?
So like we would once a month go do like we'd go work out. So
Mm-hmm.
it'd be basically just like the recruiter, face to face, like, hey, you're still.
So you still stayed at home?
Yeah, I still lived
Okay.
at home. I
Okay.
worked at Safeway.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped going to college right after that semester because I think I pulled off one A in a photography class, which, photography,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then like C, a D, and an F. So you can, right?
Yeah.
I worked at Safeway, and then I worked for my dad, carpet cleaning, and then not much else, just
Okay.
kind of
And then-
saying, oh, I'm going to the Air Force soon.
Okay,
right?
not knowing when they'd call you.
Yeah. And so they changed my career field, and I got pulled in, and he basically told me, he was like, hey, I've got 200 kids basically waiting to leave for the military. You're my number one right now just because you've been here for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he said like number 5 through 200 were getting DEP discharged.
Okay.
So basically just, hey, we're not looking for people right now. Come back basically once the government gets funding again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I got pretty lucky there. And he gave me, they call it boom operating. So he said, you're going to go be a boom operator.
Okay.
I didn't know what that meant. I mean,
Right.
I tell a lot of people I was a boom operator, and they think that I'm the guy that's holding the audio mic.
See, when you said boom, I thought like a boom lift.
Yeah, but
Like
I've heard a lot of different things,
different
but
booms?
it's never in
Like
flight.
the big boom that started the world.
Yeah, it's never in flight refueling.
Okay.
So, I was going to be a boom operator, and at the time there were 2 planes that did this job,
Mm-hmm.
and
There was 2 planes that did this job.
2 types of planes.
Oh, 2 types.
So 2 platforms in the Air
Okay.
Force that did aerial refueling
Okay.
of fighters, cargo planes, bombers, whatever, KC-10 and then the KC-135.
Okay.
And I didn't know what plane I was going to go on. And
Did you prefer a certain plane? What's the benefits, or where did you want to go?
so later you go to your basic training,
Mhm.
and then you do the boot camp, and then you do tech school. So
Mhm.
that's basically where you go off to your various specializations, like cops go one place, maintenance goes another,
Mhm.
air crew go to actually like 3 bases to do
Okay.
their training, not including our boot camp in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. Wow.
And so I wanted the KC-10
Mm-hmm.
because they're stationed, they have basically 2 main bases,
Mm-hmm.
Travis right down the road in Fairfield,
Yeah.
and then McGuire, New Jersey. So you get homesick, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, oh, I want to go home,
You could just fly
be
home.
closer to my family, and
Right.
then, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But luckily, I didn't get the KC-10 for the most part. There might have been some nice things about it, but I got the KC-135.
Okay.
Now, what do you want to hear about boot camp? Like, you've
Okay.
heard the stories, right?
Okay, let's finish with the 135.
Yeah.
So the KC-135, the 110 is in 2 spots in the United States.
Yeah.
The
Basically,
KC-135 is outside,
all over the world. So
all over the
Japan,
world.
England, Kansas,
So
Washington
is this a
State.
bigger plane?
No, the KC-135 is actually, it's like half the size of the KC-10. So I don't know the exact length offhand, but I would compare the KC-135 to your typical airliner, like a 737.
Okay.
It's a little bit bigger. It's got 4
That's
engines.
a big plane, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like a 747.
Yeah.
And the KC-10 is, it's a DC-10, so it's a McDonnell Douglas. It's a cargo carrier.
Okay.
And they've just modified it to do the aerial refueling job.
Okay, gotcha.
Pretty big plane.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, let's go back to boot camp. So you were waiting on DEP.
Yep.
Did you do boot camp before that or after that?
You do it after.
You do
so
it after.
You're just waiting for basically a slot in whatever job you get to open up. So it's, if you can think about it, it's, you have people at any given time, like right now, there's a kid tomorrow somewhere in the country, somewhere in the world, being shipped off to boot camp. At the same time, there might be a kid that's showing up to the first part of the tech school training, the second part, the third part, and then getting to their first duty station, maybe someone deploying. So you have all these people in flux.
Okay, what was the average age of a kid in your boot camp?
So I left for boot camp in January of 2014, and they hold, the Air Force does boot camp in San Antonio, Texas at Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay.
So when you show up, you get put into kind of a random assortment of a flight, they call it. And we had something like 40-ish people in our flight. We had one guy that was, I think he was like 29 years old. And then a lot of 18-year-olders, a few 17-year-olders, and I was 19, I think, at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one guy that was 29?
Yeah.
And what's the cutoff?
29 at the time.
Okay.
I think they've changed it since.
To an older or younger?
35, I think.
35.
I think I remember the reserves they can do up to 35.
Nice. That's cool because some guys want to, like, dude, I hate all my jobs out here in the real world. I'd love to go, join the military or something. That's pretty sweet. So how was boot camp? I mean, I've seen all these YouTube videos and stuff. Do you run in, you shave your head, they yell at you?
It's quite the helmet fire. I mean, you show up and it's changed over the decades. They used to be able to actually hit you and, really, ruin your day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been, just as the culture's become what it has, it's definitely, I'd call it, it's been nerfed a little bit.
Okay.
So I went in 2014, like I said, and that was kind of in the midst of all of this kind of like, we don't need to yell at the trainees nearly as much. And when I showed up, I had a kind of an old school drill sergeant.
Okay.
So Tech Sergeant Napolitano was his name.
That's definitely a drill sergeant name.
Yeah, 6 years later, I remember, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember you get off, you fly into San Antonio, and you're with a group of other people going into boot camp. So we land, we walk downstairs, and there's just a bunch of kids sitting on the floor, and then there's some drill sergeants.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh, they're about to yell at me. No, because they're in the airport. You got civilians walking around, right? So they're just kind of like, go over there, sit down, get your last phone call in, and we're leaving in 20 minutes or whatever. So we sit down, and you're kind of like getting a feel. You're like, hey, where are you guys from? Oh, New York. And everyone's just kind of on edge. So then you get on the bus, you get to the military base. That's when it starts. Okay. So
when no one's watching.
Yeah, once you're in the safety of the the gates, right?
Yeah.
You're getting yelled at.
Once you can't run away.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
I just remember you go through all the processing, you do probably, I don't know, 6 hours of just paperwork. And we were like the last people in. So we didn't get back to the actual dormitory until like 4 a.m.
Really?
So, yeah, it was
they
really
don't
late.
stop.
I don't know what time it was because I didn't have, they tell you to turn off your phone and put it in your backpack.
Yeah.
I didn't have a watch on me. And so I just remember getting off the bus, and then that's when it started. And it was Tech Sergeant Napolitano and another MTI military training instructor that are just screaming at you. And I mean, so close that you can, it's terrifying, right? And you're trying to just listen to what they say.
But you're also trying to control your emotions.
You're just scared. Everyone's just scared. There's not, you got a lot of people that say, oh, we were tough guy. No. You're literally just trying to keep your head down so you don't get screamed at more or, made to do push-ups or singled out, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're trying to make those first impressions of, I'm not the idiot. Please don't make the next 6 weeks of my life just a living hell.
Yeah.
Just
because if you single yourself out, they'll probably keep picking on you.
Yep. And so now I did that, but not intentionally. It actually wasn't my fault. So
what happened?
This is like a few days later.
Okay.
We get into the dorm. You put your stuff down. You're still getting just screamed at, and it's just chaotic. You finally you're like going to bed.
Okay.
And you get to sleep, and it's really funny because there's all the kids like sniveling and crying, just sad because they're like stressed. You're stressed.
You're for real. Okay, so these 18-year-old kids are crying in bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you finally pass out, and then reveille. So it's just a song, military movie. If you go watch any of the old style military movies, you'll hear this song. And so when that happens, then multiple of these military training instructors are there to just get you up because you don't know what's going on, right? It's not like they give you a paper like this is how day one's going to go.
Right, this
day
is the schedule.
You just, it's chaotic. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. You're still wearing you could show up like this. Yeah. What you're wearing, you could be there. You could be wearing a hoodie. It doesn't matter. Like you're not in uniform yet.
Yeah.
Then you go and you get food, and then that's where they really scream at you too.
When you eat?
Yeah, because it's basically like you're learning the initial processes of how to be an airman. So
I'm not seeing the.
It's like you got 50 people.
Okay.
And then there's God knows how many of these flights. So there might be 600 people that have to get food.
Okay.
So you have to funnel them in. They have to sign in. They have to do everything a very specific way. And you get a bunch of stressed 18-year-old kids, right? They're not doing it.
Yeah.
And so there's things like you'd be standing there waiting to get to, it's like an L shape of just serving, I'll take eggs, I'll take bacon, I'll take this, that, whatever. And you sidestep. So they tell you to proceed. So you go, and then you have to turn a certain way. So you twist your feet, doing the kind of like basic marching movements.
Okay.
But kids like me don't know how to do that.
Right.
So you're walking up, and there's like 3, like of these drill instructors with these big hats, and they're just intimidating as hell.
Yeah.
And they're just screaming at you. And then, you get it, and then you just go through, and then you do your days, and you go through the training, and it takes, I think it was like 8 weeks at the time. And you kind of get the hang of it eventually. But the way that I kind of marked myself was just my last name. So last name of Carl.
Yeah.
We had to sign a form. So everyone in the flight had to sign this one form saying Carl, Tyler, whatever. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Well, in the military, they do last name first, first name last. So,
last name first, first name last. Okay.
So Carl, Tyler.
Right.
What I'd put.
Okay.
But I have a first name for a last name. So people keep messing up, going and putting their first name first.
Oh, okay.
So I do that, and then I have to explain to this drill sergeant that
this
my
is
last name is the first name. And he didn't believe me, so I have to go get my driver's license to then show him, and then in front of the whole flight of guys,
yeah,
he then tells me to share what my middle name is.
Yeah.
Middle name of Jared. So
Okay.
you can imagine when someone with 3 first names comes into
Right.
basically just a group of guys, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of,
Carl, Jared, Tyler.
yeah, So that was kind of how my
So what
BMT.
were the jokes that the drill sergeant would go off on?
There's some Mad TV skit. So this is 2014. So this is, I think this is when The Walking Dead was popular. So Carl from The Walking Dead.
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so there's a lot of just internet memes and just
about Carl.
clips about this kid, Carl. And so I'd get a lot of that.
Okay.
He would do these Mad TV skits. Apparently there's an SNL thing too.
Okay.
And it all involves Carl. And then there's Combat Carl, which is a military specific version making fun of just this fictitious guy that says dumb things, Carl.
Really? Oh,
so
man.
I got all of it. I mean,
yeah. That sucks. Yeah. Did your dad get it in military?
I assume so, but you
guys all have the same last name.
Yeah, and basically every guy in the family, everyone really has 3 first names. So yeah, I'd assume, we all got it, right? When you go to boot camp, you're just going to get yelled at. It's part of the whole discipline thing. But I don't know specifically, like, did he get it for having these 3 first names?
Okay.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so you went through boot camp. You said it was like about 8 weeks. Was there a point in boot camp where you're like, okay, I can do this?
I knew I was going to be able to do it from the. I mean, when I brought up the some of the kids
crying,
being upset, crying, it was funny to me because it was like you just got to do it, right? I mean, you go be homesick.
So you came in with the mindset this is gonna suck.
It's gonna suck.
I'm gonna get through it.
You just go do it. It's not special forces training. You're not Navy SEAL going through buds. You're just going through Air Force boot camp. Right, and the jokes.
I want to say yes, but I have no idea what it is. So
but the jokes with the military is you got the Marines, then you got the Army, then there's like the Navy and the Air Force. But the Air Force is kind of like the cushy of the military branches. Okay. You also have the Coast Guard, but they're not. We don't care about them.
Okay, really, dude. Sometimes I think the Coast Guard's like the craziest guys.
Oh,
or is it like?
It would be great to do that, and it's cool, but there's just so few of them that I've never met one in my life. So
that's true. I haven't either.
It's kind of like an inter-service joke. We all, people make fun of the Army for these reasons. People make fun of the Marines for that, the Navy, and then people make fun of the Air Force for every reason.
Okay.
Right?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's just how it was. It wasn't like, oh, I might not be able to do this. Like some people got hurt. That's going to happen. A lot of people get stress fractures just because they're not used to running and marching and being on their feet all the time. And, one of the people I went through boot camp, they had stress fractures and they were just in pain. And, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then there's people that you'll get in trouble. So they'll call it like rolling you back. And so that happens. But I went through, I did it 8 weeks, nothing crazy for me.
Okay, so when you graduated, I assume your parents came out.
Yeah. Yep.
You graduated boot camp.
Yep.
So then what happens after boot camp? They give you your job title, or you give you a choice?
I can't. So honestly, because I was in the aviation career field in the military is a little unique. Like if this whole interview is going to be kind of atypical because some people are going to go and say, oh, I was a maintainer, and then every maintainer is able to, oh, I already know the story.
Okay.
And even if you weren't in the military, you'll be able to hear enough stories and be like, oh, you get how the process works.
Okay.
Aviation stuff is different. Okay. So I already knew my job. I didn't have that, like, you're going to get one of these different jobs in like the IT career field. I got told I'm going to be a boom operator.
Okay.
And it was because I believe it's more on the thought process that some of these jobs are a little bit more risky. So you tell people up front, hey, boom operator, that's what I got you. And you go, oh, that sounds great. Or, ooh, I don't want to fly. Okay. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to fly, but
if you're joining the Air Force.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm joining the Navy, but I get seasick. I don't know if I want to be on a
Yeah.
boat.
Now, that's partly true, but there's also actually like in the enlisted career field, just in general, I think it's only 1% of all enlisted people actually fly as their job.
In the Air
In the
Force?
whole Air Force, enlisted side only.
Okay.
Because officers are the ones that fly planes.
Okay.
So you need a college degree to go fly an F-15 fighter, or a C-5
Okay,
cargo
got you.
jet, whatever.
Got you.
So there's something like 8 career fields that enlisted people can get into.
Mm-hmm.
Boom operator, load master, people that check scopes, radar operators, sensor operators, not tail gunners, but just gunners on helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really that many jobs for the
Okay,
enlisted people
got you.
to
That
do.
makes sense.
But so I already knew where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
All the other people, they kind of get told, I think in boot camp, I forget when,
Mm-hmm.
they go, hey, you're gonna go do this job. So your tech school's in Mississippi. Your tech school is gonna be in Texas. Yours is gonna be in California, whatever. Mine was basically I was gonna stay at Lackland, so that same Air Force base. I was gonna do it's kind of like a weed out course. So
Okay.
it's they call it aircrew fundamentals. So they basically, I think it's a 2-week course. They overload you with information, and it honestly is just trying to get people to quit.
Okay.
In the sense that you don't want people that might not be able to have the mental capacity to go through
To
the
handle
training, because it is pretty expensive to get an aircrew member ready to deploy.
Yeah.
So do that, and then that's when they tell you what plane you get. I got told KC-135, and even just the way that they told us, like our class of 10 people, it was like, okay, these 4 members are a part of the Air National Guard. So they came in from Air National Guard in California. So you show up to the Air Force knowing you're coming back, right? And then there's all the active duty people that they're just going. And so it's basically, oh, you 4 up front, you're getting these bases. Oh, cool. They got their, then the next people. England, Japan.
Just like random.
Just they're going down the list, and I'm in the way back.
Yeah.
And they go England, Japan, Hawaii, California, and then it's like me and this other guy, and they go, and you guys got Kansas. You guys got McConnell Air Force Base.
Yeah.
We just look at each other and we're like, well, guess we're going to Kansas. Like,
yeah. Okay.
Literally on the list of places I wanted to go.
Oh, really?
It was 13th.
Oh, 13.
Yeah.
Oh, the last place.
The last one.
Okay.
So
what was your number 1?
I think it was Hawaii.
Okay.
I believe Hawaii, maybe Washington State. And they had like New Hampshire. They had a few bases at the time that I don't think you can go to anymore.
Okay.
Southern California. Europe, obviously. England would have been cool. Japan would have been cool. But
right. Experience something different.
Kansas was cool too. I actually did like it.
Okay.
From that point, you do another course that's specific to your airframe. So we did, the in-flight refueling for KC-135s and KC-10s. And then you go to survival training. So SEER training is a pretty well-known thing. I think within the military, it's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Okay. So the training is decades old. They've been doing it a long time.
So like if your plane gets hit, how you survive?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, exactly. So you get shot down over some location. How do you survive? How do you evade? If you get captured, how do you resist? And then, how to escape. Things like that.
Okay.
So that training is something like this classroom portion. Then there's the actual outdoors part where you and instructor and I think it's 5 to 6 people will go out, and then you just have certain tasks you have to do.
Okay.
That's like 2 weeks, and I could talk a long time about that because that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun and then pretty scary at sometimes because being treated like a prisoner of war, I don't ever want to experience that.
So do Just really quickly, a couple.
So the initial part,
Yeah.
you come back from the field training after being out in the field for 6 days.
Okay.
You're hungry. The bus comes into the military base, and you kind of know it's going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to happen. You hear real gunfire, blanks.
Yeah.
Guys with guns come on the bus. They, take the bus driver out. They put bags on your head. Then they march you down to do the whole like interrogation.
Okay.
And I have a bag on my head. The bag gets pulled off, and I'm hearing screaming and just chaos, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking straight ahead, and I just get slapped. I mean, real hard too. And it was a guy that was about 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
I'm 6'1". So I just get rocked.
So like you hear a slap and then you hear him landing back on his feet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I just get hit, and then it's like who are you? And you're trying to not answer, right?
Okay. Oh, so you're supposed to, okay.
They coerce you to get information out of you.
Yeah.
So who are you? And then you're like, and then they just, they'll go and they can't hurt you, right?
Yeah.
They can't punch you in the face. So they'll just like slap your stomach, and it just kind of shocks you, right?
Yeah.
And so they do that, and you're just like, and then you're trying not to tell them.
Yeah.
And then they just get further and further down we're going to get this information out of you.
Yeah.
And so that was just the initial experience of that.
Okay.
There's a lot more stories with that, but it's just the training on how to remain composed enough to not tell certain things. Like if you wanted to know everything about me, well,
what if you just started like just making up a bunch of stuff, telling them a fake name?
They hate you more.
Really?
So it's a game because it is training, right?
Right.
So the point is just to, show you kind of how it might work.
Just to be mentally kind of prepared.
Yeah. And then you do that with no training.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go in a classroom and they actually physically, they have slideshows, they have one-on-one kind of things like, here's how you would avoid the situation, or maybe how you could turn the situation. So if you're trying to coerce information out of me, how I can, use, just techniques to maybe like withhold information from you.
Gotcha.
And yeah. So that's that training.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. They do some water survival training. So they take basically an aircraft fuselage and then they just submerge it.
Oh, dude, I was watching that. So you got to do that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's pretty cool, where it kind of turns into the water or something.
Ours, because we were on, we were all KC-135 crew members to be. We just basically, they were like, okay, we're up there. You're on a crane inside an indoor pool. And then it just tilts the thing down. And then it kind of just moves it in.
Just kind of like a slowly drowning plane or something.
Yeah. And it's not quick, but it's just to simulate like, okay, if you, we call it ditching. So crash landing, but in water. How you get out? So, here, open the door. Get out, go inflate this raft, and then get in the raft. And then at that point, you got to bail water out. So bail the water out. Oh, there's a hole here. Apply that special tape, So that was pretty fun.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. How many days did that go on for?
The water survival, I think, was only 1 day. I think it was just 1 day. Yeah. Okay. And it's funny, though, because, again, with the atypical time in the military, is you're supposed to do water survival. Then you immediately go to survival training. I did water survival. Yeah. Then I got hurt.
Then you got hurt.
So I dislocated my left kneecap.
How did that happen?
I don't have a good story for it, but I assume I got to tell it,
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to if it's a bad story.
No, it's not anything bad besides the fact I dislocated my knee, but I was walking on carpet, planted my leg wrong, twisted, fell right on the knee, popped it out.
Wow.
And then I had to go to the ER, get it reset.
Wow, Carl.
Back. Yeah. And so that was a fun thing to explain to everyone, right?
Yeah. So how long were you out? You couldn't train after that, or
4 months? So I had to.
So you have to put your training on hold, or
yeah. So I literally training on hold. I might not have even been able to continue on because it was like, well, will your knee heal back to where you can go through survival training in the near future, right? So luckily it did. Everything worked out. Then I went and did the survival training.
So what were you doing these like the 4 months?
I hesitate to say nothing, but nothing. Like I basically would do that first course, the aircrew fundamentals. They have dorms, and they're not like the basic training dorms. You kind of have some freedom. So I was just basically a gate guard for the dormitory.
Okay, so just you're.
Can I check your ID to get
You're still doing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just do that, and that's all I really did. And then I would do physical therapy, and then eventually I got cleared to go back, and I went through the survival training in, it was like September of, this would have been 2014. And I got the nicest time of the year because they do survival training in January.
Oh, wow.
Like right now, there are some guys out in the north part of Washington, like 50 miles from the Canadian border or so, that are out in tents.
Freezing
Cold. They've got no food. And they're, and in a few days, they'll go to get, slapped in the face by the...
by their short man.
The instructors, yeah.
By the short guy. That makes sense.
So after that, then you go to the actual training on your airframe.
Okay.
And that course is like 2 months to 4 months, depending. And you go over like computer-based trainings on this system, this electrical system does this.
On the airplane.
Yeah. This hydraulic system does this, then a test.
Okay.
Then, the cargo floor, this is how you load cargo, then a hands-on test. So can you run through the procedure safely? Cool, you're good. Now you're going to go over to do the simulator training.
Okay.
The simulator training is just basically it's a video game, really.
So like if something happens to the pilot, can you land the plane or?
No, we don't do any of that. I mean, we've got the 2 pilots, and if anything happens to both pilots, well, we'll see. I mean,
we're jumping in the water.
I've flown the jet once, and I almost flew into a different country, so that happened.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, it could have been real bad, but...
So, like, not on the simulator?
No, like in real life, yeah.
How the heck did you get to do that?
When you're deployed, you get a little bit more freedom. So once you're operational, pilots, you can kind of, like you'll let a pilot come.
You become friends with your crew, and
yeah. Like I just went to my pilot on one of my deployments. Just got married, so I was one of the groomsmen in his wedding.
Okay, nice.
So that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
You're friends with pilots; they're friends with you, and that's another atypical thing. Is usually officers and enlisted. They're not friends. They actually call it, there's a term for it. It's called fraternization.
Fraternization?
Yeah, fraternization. I don't know how to say it, but I'm not that smart.
No, that's where some dudes are too cool for other dudes.
Yeah, so it's basically just like, you got a supervisor at work. Well, if you're hanging out with your supervisor, and then your supervisor's not hanging out with someone else, you're going to get preferential treatment. That's kind of the thought process.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, so you do the simulator training, which is basically just procedure. So we're talking about in-flight refueling now. And the way that the boom pod and the KC-135 works is you're at the bottom of the plane, at the back of the plane.
Okay.
So I'm laying down. It'd be like if you're laying on your stomach.
Okay.
Just 30-degree angle-ish, and you've got a chin rest. And then I'm looking out a window.
Okay.
And I've got a controller. It's just like, in the movies, how fighter pilots fly their plane, except for it just controls the boom. I've got another controller that makes it go in and out.
Okay.
The boom itself it's like a 30-foot long pole with part of the pole extends in or out.
Okay.
It's got 2 wings on it, and the wings make it go left, right, up, or down, depending on what I give to the control stick.
Okay.
And the window is looking out over, just.
I saw your pictures. They look beautiful.
And that's definitely like, maybe after this I can share. There's a video that kind of gives you visuals, because I can say bottom and back of the aircraft all day long, but people listening to this,
I'm like imagining like the cargo plane where the tail end goes down.
Yeah.
Kind of. That's what I'm imagining.
Basically like just a small part of that.
Okay.
And it's not going down. It's just there's just a door that basically opens, and I've got a glass window, and so then I can see everything.
Okay.
Out the bottom and back of the plane.
Okay.
And so then the planes physically will come up.
Okay.
And they're about 30 feet away when I'm refueling them.
Okay, so now we're talking about a little bit more specific about your career or your job that you had. What's your like a typical day? You leave the Air Force Base, or are you flying for a couple days? Do you fly up every day?
It's really there's not I wouldn't say a typical day.
Okay.
Because we've got 2 jobs. So once you get to your duty station, you're going to be doing desk work and flying.
Okay.
So, if I'm on the schedule to go fly, you'll have a scheduling shop that'll go say, "Hey, Tyler, you're free," or that you're going to go fly on Thursday and you're going to go fly on Monday. Here are the details for the flight. And then you'll go, "Okay, I'm refueling fighters on Thursday. I've got to be at the Air Force Base at 4 a.m. And it's a 5-hour flight." So
Okay,
4 a.m., you're at the Air Force Base. You do some pre-mission stuff. You do a brief. Then you got to the aircraft. You go pre-flight it. So get the plane ready. Then you go fly. You do the 5-hour mission. You land. You do some post-mission stuff. So you go to maintenance to give them forms and just say, "Hey, we broke this thing on the jet. We broke that thing. We broke that thing." And then you leave. So that
So
might
it's a
be
5-hour mission, but what's the time frame of you get to the base at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, you might get to the base. It's all completely random dependent on the mission. So
Okay.
4 a.m. you might arrive. You might arrive at 9 a.m.
Okay.
You might arrive at 1 p.m. You might arrive at 5 p.m.,
Okay.
10 p.m. It literally, there's no limitation on when you can or can't show up.
Okay.
So it's mission dependent. And so you'll go do that. And it might be, the shortest I've ever had might have been, it's 3 hours. Basically, I think it's 3 hours, 45 minutes from show up to actual takeoff time. I've had an hour mission before. So 4 hours.
4-hour prep
Yeah.
to take off.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my, jeez, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. So 4 hours.
I guess it's necessary.
Yeah, you got paperwork you got to do. You've got to actually go from the briefing rooms to the flight line, and that maybe takes 15 minutes. And then you got to go do the pre-flight and physically go check everything, make sure the flight controls work. They're up front. They're basically turning on computers and verifying they work. And then because it's an old jet, it's broken, and then you got to get it fixed. So then they get it fixed, and then everything's good to go. You start engines, and then you go and taxi out and go take off.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll have maybe a 1-hour mission one day, and then I'll land, and then an hour later I'm done. And so that might be a 6-hour day, or it might be 4 hours prior. Then you have a 12-hour mission. Then you have an hour. So
okay, so
now we're talking 17.
Yeah.
So it could be a 6-hour day. It could be a 17-hour day. It can be longer. I've had plenty longer than that. And when you're doing the desk job, it's a usual,
9 to 5.
8 to 4, but
8 to 4,
same thing. So
8 to 4 is better.
Right, yeah. And maybe you get off early. So sometimes it might be, okay, you don't really have that much desk work to do. So 8 to 4 or 8 to 2 or whatever.
Okay. So what do you do? Desk work. What are you working on?
So it's an aviation squadron.
Okay.
So you've got different departments that it's all basically directly related to making the mission happen.
Okay.
So you'll have standards and evaluation, and that's like making sure aircrew are current and qualified.
Okay.
So you have all of these tests, all of these practical knowledge tests that they have to do at different recurring intervals, or they can't go fly the plane. Okay. So I worked there. That was part of my job, is make sure that you are good. Like your driver's license is good, up to date. You took driver's
checking
ed,
all certs and stuff.
And it expired. Okay, we got to get that fixed.
Okay.
I've worked scheduling, so making sure that all the missions are filled, are planned everything, sending out the emails like, hey, you're flying this day at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in, they call it mobility. So making sure aircrew members are mobile so that they can go do missions in Europe, in the Middle East, wherever they need to go. So you got a passport, you're qualified on the M9 pistol. So, you can shoot a gun, right? And then different computer-based trainings and making sure everyone's good to go.
Okay.
I've worked training. So training is just kind of an extension of standards and evaluations, making sure people are trained, up to date, that they've got this, one might be just getting firearms training, going to the range and qualifying. Cool.
Okay.
A lot, there's multiple jobs beyond that, but that's basically the kind of the bare bones, like
the desk
that's
side.
what people do, and they're manned by aircrew members.
Okay, gotcha. So your aircrew, let's talk a little bit about your mission. Say you do your 4-hour prep, you get on the plane, do you jump directly in the back, or do you guys do certain things you guys do in the air before the jets start flying up?
So, it all just depends, like we'll go and I'll do my pre-flight. And so my pre-flight is going to be, I basically, to dumb it down, is pilot seat forward. I don't care about. That's the pilot's responsibility. Pilot seat all the way back is my deal. And so I'll be making sure cargo's tied down. I'll be making sure the hatches are closed. I'm making sure that the boom pod, the switches are in the correct position. And then they do a flight control check. So you go and you make sure, oh, cool, it extends and it retracts, whatever. So you'll go back up front. You'll do the start engines procedures, and I'm just making sure that the engines are starting appropriately and that the temperatures are within ranges and there's no warning lights. We've got a big, kind of like your circuit breaker box on your house,
Same thing.
a lot more than that, but making sure that none of them are tripped. And then
so I know like an airplane has the fuel for the airplane is in the wings.
Yeah. So
where does all this fuel go that you guys are flying up to refuel these jets?
Yeah. So we've got 10 gas tanks on the jet.
Oh wow.
There's basically now it's been a while, and there's 2 in the left wing. The number 1, number 2, and then 2 in the right wing. The number 3, the number 4, and then we've got, maybe it's not 10. It's been a year since I've flown, or actually it's been like 2 years since I've flown. And then you've got a forward tank, a center, an aft, and then there's another one, upper deck tank. So there's all these different tanks for fuel, and there's a lot of fuel on that jet. That's the job of a KC-135.
You do not want to get hit on that jet. That thing's gonna blow up.
Oh, I just don't want to get hit in general.
Yeah,
flying at all, I'm good. Mid-air collisions are no fun for people and
for anybody. Yeah,
that's
crazy, dude.
That's the funny thing about refueling is air traffic control considers any time we refuel as a mid-air collision because our plane it physically touches their plane.
Oh, that's right.
The aerial refueling boom.
Yeah.
So I go and I fly over the metal boom, and then they've got a receptacle, and I put it there, and I'm touching the plane now. Then we lock together.
Okay.
And I can unlock it, they can unlock it, but we are basically
tied together,
at least the fuel systems.
Yeah.
So
how difficult is it to get in like an airplane in perfect position to lock for fueling?
It can be pretty tough. I mean, you think about there's so many different aerodynamic effects on these planes that they have to have a lot of training to do it. So something like an F-15, or an F-16, just a fighter jet, they're pretty nimble. They've got a lot of power. Be like a Corvette, right? Corvette can get right behind a big rig and stay in the perfect spot it needs to just fine. If you're flying, a cargo jet like a C-5, it takes a little bit more to get into the right position.
Okay.
They don't move nearly as quickly as the fighter jets, so it can be pretty tough because you've got air coming up over the nose of the receiver plane, and we're up here. So there's air coming under, air coming over. They come up here, and then there's air coming up. If they get too close, there's an aerodynamic effect that will pull planes together. And they have to fight through that wave.
So it's almost like kind of two magnets pushing at each other
and pulling. It's just weird.
Pulling.
It's really, that's a very dumbed down way to put it. Yeah. But they've kind of got to fight through. They've got to, speed up enough to get through that, but not too much to hit us. And that's my job, is basically to tell my pilots how close they are, because my pilots are going to feel different things. It's kind of like you driving down the highway. You get too close to a big rig. You ever feel that when it's like you're getting sucked in? Yeah, or you pull.
I felt that, or I felt like when a big rig drives by you,
you get blown when they leave, because the wind's hitting you again.
Right.
All sorts of stuff like that, except for it's like a 3D environment. So it's left, right, forward, back, up, and down.
Wow, that's crazy. What's the longest it's taken? Like it's taken to connect two planes?
Sometimes you'll get some student pilots that are pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I've had plenty of these where you'll have a guy in training, or maybe someone that was trained at one point, went uncurrent and is getting requalified, and it'll take him literally a half hour to go from what we would call the pre-contact position at 50 feet back to contact, which is 0 feet.
Half an hour. That's crazy.
And the whole time I have to hold this stick.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm laying down, so I've got to hold this stick.
Yeah.
And look out this window and tell my pilots where they are. I mean, it's not super crucial when it takes them a half hour.
Yeah.
It's more like when someone's coming up in a matter of 30 seconds, right? And that's about average. 50 feet to 0 feet, we go by the rule of 10 feet per second. 10 feet per second.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll take them,
a couple seconds. That's pretty quick. That's actually very interesting. So, say some of our viewers or listeners they want to join the Air Force. They know they can't qualify, or they're not willing to do the schooling to become a pilot, but they don't want to be a mechanic. What are the chances of them getting your job? Like, what would you recommend?
So a lot of it will be, it's chance. I got really lucky. I told you guys before, there's 800 people, roughly, maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,500, but I know it's not that much at any given point that are in the Air Force that actually refuel planes.
Wow.
So that's not very many.
In the entire world.
In the entire world. So there's just not that many people that do it. It's really rare to actually get the opportunity to go refuel planes.
Okay.
Now, in saying that, is you might get picked up for crew comm, like I said, or IT, and then you go and you do the paperwork to go cross train.
Okay.
So you cross train, and then you get the opportunity. Hey, we do need people in the boom operator career field.
So even though you say somebody joins, they go into IT, for example, there's still potentially a chance for them to become a boom operator.
Yeah. And there's even been times where boom operators have left the boom field to go do different jobs.
Okay.
It is a pretty tough career field. I mean, there's a lot of things that's hard about it, but you spend a lot of time away from home.
Okay.
So
you're flying and...
Yeah. So like I said, when you asked me, what's a typical day look like? I'm like, I don't know, because there is no typical day.
Makes sense.
There's one time where I'm told, hey, you're going to stay at home station.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I'm on a TDY to Peru.
Oh, wow.
And then the day before it's supposed to leave, oh, it's Florida now. Okay, cool. I'm going, wait, no, it's Georgia?
So things change that fast.
Alabama, maybe? oh no, Charleston. And then you find out literally when you show up to do your brief, you get tired of hearing where you might go.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't care. And then you get asked, your parents are like, hey, so
Yeah.
where are you going? And you're like, I don't know.
I'll find out when I get there.
So, you land and you're like, oh, Charleston. Cool. This is where I am now.
Okay.
So it's there's a lot of change that goes, you expect one thing, and that's kind of the thing about being a boom operator is you just have to be flexible.
That's cool. I mean,
it's not as good for like family life, right?
But for single guys,
yeah, and I was single guy for a while, and it was fun because you just go. It was like, oh, cool, I'm deployed. Come back through England, go downtown Cambridge, go have some beers at a pub. Then I get back to Kansas, and then I get told, hey, would you go to Vegas for 3 weeks? I'm like, yeah. So you go to Vegas, and then, oh, hey, do you want to go to Hawaii? Yeah. And then you get to the point where you don't want to go to Hawaii anymore.
Wow.
That's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not many people say that.
Yeah.
And I did the math on it, and in the year 2016, from being gone, I spent 280 days not at my home in Kansas.
Okay.
So I was all over the world.
Dude, that's pretty. That is pretty cool. That's pretty cool experience.
Yeah, and it didn't stop. It wasn't like that was the high point.
Yeah,
it was. I had just kind of getting spun up late 2015.
Yeah,
and then I'm deploy. So I deploy, come back. I go to Vegas for 3 weeks, come back. I'm there for a month. I come to California for 2 weeks. I go back to Kansas. I go Germany for a night. Qatar, that's where we deploy. 70 days. England, Washington State one night. Kansas for 2 days.
So even though you were stationed at Kansas,
I didn't spend a lot of time there.
You were all over the place.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I walk into the recruiter's office in the Air Force.
You can tell them, you can basically say, I want to go refuel planes. I want to be a boom operator.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to tell you, so does everyone. Now, when they say that,
people really want that?
Yeah, it's supposedly, and I've heard this from a lot of people. Obviously, I'm biased because I did it, but you have officers say, I'd trade you jobs if I could. So, and I'm not talking like ones we work with, just other people that aren't in the flying communities. Oh, I really wish I could do that. And there's kind of a weird just attitude towards aircrew on a lot of levels, but there's, that understanding that the job that we do is important.
Oh, no.
And that's why the Air Force exists.
I mean, the fact that the Air Force, I don't know what year when this first started, this aerial refueling.
Long time ago.
But that changed, like, the way the Air Force can reach the other side of the world, like, change the missions.
Yeah.
Probably help the success rate of many missions, you know? That changed a lot of things. So.
Yeah. Because the unique thing about tankers, aerial refueling, is that exactly what you just said is the way it changed it, though, is you think about, it doesn't matter what era fighter aircraft you're talking about, they're small. They don't have big fuel tanks.
Yeah.
So modern day F-16 might be able to fly and do its mission for an hour and a half. It's not much time.
Really?
Yeah. It's not much time at all.
So you're technically a skyborne
gas station.
Gas station or carrier.
Yeah. And that's what KC stands for. It's kerosene carrier.
Kerosene carrier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've been doing it, like the history of aerial refueling is pretty interesting because they're doing it with biplanes. So I think it just hit 100 years last year. So I think it's 101 years of aerial refueling.
Wow.
But the very first time, a guy had a hose and he dangled it, and the other plane came up, caught the hose, and then filled up his gas tank.
Wow. Probably at a very much lower altitude.
Yeah. You're talking, the teens 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So the technology developed over decades, and the KC-135 was actually, it was designed, I believe, in 1952, It first flew in 1953.
Mm-hmm.
They made it from 1957 to 64.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, they've just done upgrades. Like they re-engined it about 20 years, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So they keep the same body.
The same
just update
fuselage.
technology.
Yeah, it'd be, your car, you
Yeah.
put on new tires, but that's not abnormal. Oh, the engine blew. You need a new engine. You
Mhm.
need a new transmission. Let's put in a Bluetooth dash with GPS.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's what they've done to the KC-135 just over the 60-ish years it's been active service.
Okay.
I
mean, that's a pretty good investment.
Yeah. That's definitely, a lot of planes, they'll get, the Air Force is kind of different, but you go look at like civilian airliners,
Mhm.
most of them are probably like 10 to 20 years, and then the next plane.
Really? What do they
Yeah.
do with the planes?
So usually, I don't know, obviously, the civilian air sector as much, but
Mhm.
you'll have a commercial airliner that'll go do a job like a 747,
Mhm.
and it'll get to a certain amount of, they call it airframe hours.
Mhm.
They'll sell it to a cargo company
Oh.
that'll
Okay.
go take all the seats out of it. They'll use it for cargo.
FedEx or
whatever. Maybe they'll sell it to a third world country that's using it for cargo
Mhm.
or just whatever,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
so that's kind of what they do a lot of the times.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you. That was very interesting. I learned a lot. Everything from boot camp to refueling a plane in the air.
Oh, yeah.
That's super cool, dude. I'm glad you had a good experience. You served for 4 years?
It did 5 years in
5
total.
years.
Yeah, so I signed up, and then I just got out in January of this year,
Yeah.
and then now I'm going to college. So
what are you going to, if you don't mind me asking, what are you going to school now for?
geology.
Geology.
So I figured I was
Whoa.
up refueling planes at
Okay.
30,000 feet. Now I want to go play with rocks. So
Okay, that's pretty cool, dude.
quite the opposite.
Yeah, very opposite. You're going from the sky to underground.
Yeah.
But that's cool, dude. That means we're definitely gonna have a follow-up episode once you become a geologist and discover some kind of
That'll be
something
interesting.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
or just, depending on mining or petroleum industry, it's just interesting to see all these kind of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Geologist isn't only bones and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, especially in California, we're probably
Yeah, they're
geologists
talking.
are all over looking for the earthquake and plate tectonics and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Anyways, again, thank you for coming on. I hope you guys learned something today. I definitely did. And if you guys have any comments or questions for Tyler, please put them below. Thank you for watching, listening. Please do not forget to subscribe, follow, and share us if you found this interesting, and maybe we can help out other people looking into different careers. Like today was something in the Air Force, which I thought was super cool. Anyways, thank you. See you guys next time.